The Prince and the Sacred Land. In the heart of Java, nestled among green rice paddies, was the peaceful estate of Tegalrejo. Here lived Prince Diponegoro, a man of royal blood who preferred prayer and meditation to the politics of the palace. His greatest connection was to his land and the spirits of his ancestors, whose sacred tombs rested nearby. But one day, Dutch colonialists arrived and drove wooden stakes into the holy ground, marking a path for a new road. For the prince, this was the final, unforgivable insult. Diponegoro did not raise an army in a palace courtyard. He retreated to the quiet, echoing caves of Selarong to pray and gather his strength. But word of his defiance spread like wildfire on the wind. From villages and farms, nobles and peasants, people flocked to his side. They saw in him the fulfillment of a prophecy, the coming of the Ratu Adil, the just king who would free them. A young man named Sentat was one of the first to arrive, pledging his life to the prince's cause. The Java War began. The Dutch army, with its disciplined soldiers in blue uniforms and heavy cannons, expected a quick victory. They marched in straight lines, a force of order and power. But they were fighting a ghost. Diponegoro and his followers knew the jungle as if it were their home. They would strike from the dense foliage, a flurry of spears and shouts, only to vanish back into the shadows before the Dutch could even aim their cannons. Prince Diponegoro was not a general who commanded from a tent. He lived and fought alongside his people. He wore the simple white robes of a holy warrior, not the silks of a prince. He knew every river that could be crossed, every hidden path through the mountains, every village that would offer them shelter. This intimate knowledge of the land was his greatest weapon against the invaders. This was more than a war for territory. It was a war to protect a way of life. Diponegoro's banner was the green of Islam, and his fight was for Javanese culture, faith, and honor. The spirit of resistance swept through the island. In villages, farmers would harvest their crops for the prince's army, and women would whisper information about Dutch movements to fighters disguised as simple travelers. The people were his eyes and ears. For years, the Dutch were baffled and beaten by Diponegoro's guerrilla war. Frustrated, they appointed a new, cunning commander, General de Kock. He knew he could not outfight the prince in the jungle. He had to outthink him. In his campaign tent, surrounded by maps, he devised a new and ruthless strategy to strangle the rebellion. General de Kock's plan was the Bentengstelsel, the fortress system. He did not chase Diponegoro's army. Instead, he built a chain of small, fortified outposts, connected by roads. Each fort was a stake in the heart of the rebellion, slowly cutting off Diponegoro's movement, restricting his access to food and supplies, and tightening a deadly net around the Javanese fighters. 5 years. The war dragged on, scarring the beautiful land. Villages were burned, and fields lay fallow. The people were exhausted. Many of Diponegoro's commanders had been captured or had surrendered. His army was smaller, his followers weary and thin. Yet, their spirit was not broken. Their loyalty to their prince, their just king, burned as brightly as ever. Unable to defeat the prince in battle, the Dutch resorted to deception. Knowing Diponegoro was a devout and honorable man, they offered a truce to negotiate peace during the holy month of Ramadan. They sent an envoy with a white flag, promising the prince safe passage to their headquarters and a respectful discussion to end the bloodshed. Trusting their word of honor, Diponegoro agreed. The negotiations were a trap. As soon as Prince Diponegoro arrived, he was arrested. The Dutch had broken their sacred promise. They exiled the prince to a distant island, never to see his beloved Java again. But they could not exile his spirit. For 5 years, he had shown that the people of Java would not simply bow to a foreign power. He became a legend, a symbol of resistance whose fire would light the way for future generations in their long struggle for Merdeka, freedom.